Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. We are looking at the TRS's national ambitions and national plans as the Telangana Chief Minister tours the country, meeting with different non-BJP, non-Congress leaders. There have been some whispers of that tired old nomenclature, the third front. But what is KCR actually up to? Remember, Project Telangana is a very serious project for the BJP, and it has helped clarify the politics of the TRS as well. Can KCR be the pivot for some sort of new national political front? That's what he's hinting at, even as the Prime Minister has taken a sharp swipe at the Chief Minister of Telangana. Let's introduce our guest on the program today. Radhika, Ramaseshan, veteran journalist and commentator, is with us. We're also joined by our old friend Yashwant Deshmukh, one of our best-known psephologists and analysts. Also on the program today, PKD Nambiar. PKD Nambiar is a political analyst with a partiality for the BJP. Also joining us on the program today for the first time to the Mojo Story, welcoming Krishank Manne of the TRS, who runs the entire social media campaign, by the way, for the party online, and also Sriram, Karri, well-known journalist of the Deccan Chronicle, joining us from Hyderabad today. So thank you very much, everybody. And I'd like to start actually by playing out what KCR has been saying in recent times. He's talking about a dramatic announcement in the next 2 to 3 months. What does he possibly mean when he gave some sort of vague hint in this announcement? Listen in.
And this time, I assure you, there is going to be a change at the national level. None can stop it. None can stop it. बातें बहुत होते हैं, ऐसी बात नहीं है, लेकिन भारत बदलेगा, भारत को बदलना चाहिए, परिवर्तित होना चाहिए, संभावित रूप का परिणाम लेना चाहिए। इस देश को राजनीति के अलावा, नेताओं के अलावा, इजम्स के अलावा राइज होके डेफिनेटली देश का हालत को बदलने का हर संभव प्रयास करना चाहिए। वो जैसा कुमारस्वामी जी ने कहा, उस प्रकार से 2-3 महीने के बाद आपको सेंसेशनल न्यूज मिलेगा।
So sensational news, Bharat Badlega, speaking in Hindi quite significantly. K. Chandrashekhar Rao, or KCR as he's known, that Hindi was lost on nobody, meeting a slew of non-BJP, non-Congress leaders. Let me start by asking Krishank Manne to explain what the Telangana Chief Minister, Mr. K. Chandrashekhar Rao, was actually referring to when he's talking about a sensational announcement. What's going on here, Krishank?
Well, in short, Barkha it is a new alternative thought processes and a new agenda for the nation. Because one thing, it's to make it clear, it's not going to be some friend or an alliance, but a consortium of like-mindeds, wherein if you've heard with the mentioning of Chief Minister KCR, he has said that it's not about the isms. We are seeing the communalism or the Nehruism or the Gandhiism. These ideologies are already there. But the whole point is today, be it the government of India or the opposition claimant, the Congress party, the agenda is not agriculture, the agenda is not water, the agenda is not electricity. Still, after 75 years of independence, let us take from the Gujarat model. We continue to see the power crisis there, the water crisis there. So what exactly has happened in the 75 years of independent India, and why are we discussing of decline in rupee? Why not these issues are coming up? You see, from Kashmir till down south today in Telangana, what is the priority of the current national parties?
But hang on, can you explain this consortium of parties? You're saying it's not a front, but you're calling it a consortium. What is the difference?
Consortium of like-mindeds, not consortium of parties also.
Yes. What is the difference between a consortium and a front?
See, we have seen many fronts which have risen just during the elections or even post polls also. And at the same time, we have seen how they couldn't stand for long and have fallen flat. But here, the like-mindeds were all together, be it whatever alliance they are in. DMK is currently with Congress, but they are ready to work with KCR. Akhilesh Yadav, he is ready to work with KCR. Simultaneously, Mamta Banerjee. There are many, and not only these. For instance, if you see recent visit of Tamil Nadu actor Vijay, he and KCRG had a casual conversation, just a courtesy call. But
Hmm.
across the two states, Tamil Nadu and Telangana, there was a discussion outside about politics. Why? Because people have seen how Bharatiya Janata Party or the government of India has traumatized or even character assassined Vijay. They've haunted him on social media. They did those ED, IT raids, whatever institutions they have. So the discussion was that okay, there could be some alternative. Yes, tomorrow if we are meeting, you see when we met even Kejriwal ji, what was the discussion? What was the agenda? It was education. It was health. So each state complementing with each other, one state government complementing others' work. Like you know, we are talking about the major public issues, not
Okay.
the sector Kashmir
Okay.
debate, not the bulldozer debate, not the hijab halal debate, not the Urdu language debate, not the loudspeaker debate. Every state, this is the priority for both these national parties. We want to get rid of it. We want to speak the actual public issues, and that is what KCRG is trying to bring about everyone together.
Okay, let me bring in Sriram now and then I'll open it up for the panel. K. Chandrashekhar Rao or KCR as the Chief Minister of Telangana is known, spoke in Hindi. I was very struck by that. Am I making too much of it? Am I making too much of observing the language when I'm talking about his national plans, Sriram?
I must tell you, Barkha, KCR is an extraordinary orator in all three languages English, Hindi, Telugu. He spent many years in Delhi as a youth Congress leader under Sanjay Gandhi, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, KCRG is an extraordinarily articulate,
But the
great
fact
orator.
that he chose to speak in Hindi.
Yes, of course. He knows when to speak what language, say what. He is a master strategician and communicator. But let me tell you, as far as his politics is concerned, I'll tell you where his limitations are. His biggest limitation is there is an assembly election in Telangana several months before the Lok Sabha elections. So in November, December 2023, as per schedule, we are supposed to have elections. His rivals are both national parties, Congress and BJP. So whatever he does in national arena, he cannot afford to be seen as being soft on the Congress either, because Congress is one of the rivals in the state elections. And if you lose in the state, then you don't matter nationally. Ask Mayawati, nobody is even talking about her. So for him to win the assembly elections, he has to be seen as fighting with both Congress and BJP. The moment you say I'm fighting with Congress and BJP and create an anti-BJP front without the Congress, you effectively eliminate Mr. Stalin, Mr. Hemant Soren, and Uddhav Thackeray, who are part of UPA kind of governments with Congress. Two CMs in India are neutral, that is Naveen Patnaik and Jagan Mohan Reddy, for different reasons. And then the BJP chief ministers and NDA chief ministers. So the total playing possibility for Mr. KCR, unless he prepones the or gets an early schedule of election so that he has 1 year of low. There is those rumors in Hyderabad that he'll bring the elections early with Karnataka. So he has 1 year to focus on national elections after winning the state. That is if he wins the state. I'm not even of the view that it's a foregone conclusion. It is not. Because no matter what Krishank will say, the anti-incumbency is steep. TRS has a very tough battle ahead. No Telugu CM has won a third consecutive term in the history of independent India. These are not easy things that he can just believe it's
Okay,
a
but let's.
cakewalk. My last
Okay, hang
point,
on.
Barkha, last point. So his only choice is the communist chief minister in Kerala, Delhi chief minister, and Mamta Banerjee, of whom I believe Mamta Banerjee is not too eagerly willing to receive him either. So his net playing option is former prime ministers, former chief ministers, and Kejriwal, of course, who may come to Telangana for the next assembly election as part of their growth plan. I'd like to see the Bonhami then.
Okay, I think the very interesting point that you make is that he's taking on both the Congress and the BJP. The Congress is the immediate challenger, though with a wide gap. If you look at the numbers of the last assembly elections, we have that slide. It shows you that the Congress has not yet given up on the Telangana fight, though many would argue, certainly Prashant Kishore did when he was talking about joining the Congress, that this is not a fight that the Congress should be focusing on. This is the assembly elections. But as Yashwant Deshmukh will tell us, if you turn your glance to the recent elections that took place in Hyderabad, there were clear gains for the BJP and a clear knock for the TRS, which is probably when the TRS clarified, in a sense, it's politics. Yashwant, let me bring you in as we bring up that Hyderabad slide. There was a time when, like many other regional parties, the TRS did not seem to be stridently taking on the BJP. But then we saw these local elections take place in Hyderabad, and I think the TRS understood that the BJP's expansionist plans for the South were aimed at the state of Telangana next. And that suddenly changed everything, because clearly Asaduddin Owaisi's party maintained its level in Hyderabad, and it was the TRS that was hit. So Yashwant, what do you make of K. Chandrashekhar Rao, KCR's national political tour?
Well, Barkha, it has to be seen in all politics is local format kind of thing, because as the other panelists just rightly mentioned that his biggest battle is not at the national level. His biggest battle is basically how to retain the power in Telangana right now. You mentioned the Hyderabad civic polls. Before that, we also had 2019 Lok Sabha elections, Barkha, which were hardly within 6 months of the assembly elections. And while in assembly election you have seen a 6% or 7% vote share for the BJP, in the Lok Sabha election it was almost about 20%. And so much so that actually people do not talk much about it. But the seat where the chief minister's daughter lost to a BJP candidate in the Lok Sabha election, that was actually no less than the Amethi movement of the South. From the electoral upset perspective, nobody expected that to happen, but it happened nevertheless. So the writing on the wall is very clear that I'm not saying that BJP is likely to win Telangana, but yes, definitely BJP is likely to become the clear and present danger for KCR in Telangana, much more than the Congress. So Congress is actually on a downhill right from the last so many years, just like in rest of the India. But BJP is taking Telangana clearly as the second state of the South they would be heavily invested in. And Barkha, to your audience, I would also like to actually put this small stats for their thought process to think it over. People do not remember it that far away, but actually way before even Karnataka happened, Barkha, it was the region of Telangana which was BJP's first entry point in down south. In 1998 election in the unified Andhra Pradesh, BJP polled almost 20%. And in 1998, the same election in the Telangana region, BJP polled almost 30%. So people do not remember that because BJP gave it on a platter to Chandrababu Naidu in 1999 elections under the coalition dharma. And then they dropped the issue of Telangana and then everything is a history. But it's a fertile ground for BJP. I'm just trying to put the historical context in place. It's a fertile ground. However, as per me or as per my data, to say that BJP is right now on the verge of, making a big thorough ulatfare in Telangana, it's not happening. It is definitely going to push the Congress to number 3 place if the elections are held today. But KCR is likely to win historic mandate again. And that is purely because of his welfare politics. A lot of historic things have happened in the last 7 years. A lot of historic things. In Uttar Pradesh, no chief minister won the second chance, but he did manage to win Yogi, right?
Yeah.
So, Aam Aadmi Party winning Punjab, historic, happened, right? So Uttarakhand, the sitting CM getting defeated, yet BJP winning after changing 3 chief minister. Never happened in 75 years of politics in India. Happened. So a lot many things are happening. However, in Telangana, it's funny and unusual for me to actually observe this one thing, which could be a bittersweet thing for our friends of TRS. At this point of time, I can stick my neck out and say that between the father-son duo, uh, I think the KTR is much more seen as the balanced person to be the chief minister of Telangana. I won't divulge the numbers as such because that's not the platform. But if I have to run a poll to see between the father and son who is more popular right now, I believe the son is more popular than the father. I mean, this is where I will stop to give you the food for thought.
And that's very interesting. And Sriram, I see your hand going up, but we'll pick that up a little bit later. I think Yashwant's point about Kavita's loss, the defeat of KCR's daughter being the Amethi moment of the South is a good point for us to talk about why the BJP has set its eyes on Project Telangana, but also link it, Radhika, to the presidential polls that are coming up. And there's a wide belief that that KCR's first interest is in trying to field a joint candidate for the presidential poll. The BJP is a little short of numbers, but of course it could count on Jagan Reddy and Naveen Patnaik to save the day as always. What do you make, Radhika, of KCR's national political odyssey as it were?
Yeah, Barkha, it's very interesting that his national political ambitions have coincided with the breakthroughs that the BJP has been making in Telangana after the Lok Sabha polls. No doubt it did well in the Greater Hyderabad municipal polls, but before that, the BJP also won two assembly by polls, and both these seats were outside Hyderabad. So it's not just Hyderabad which is giving the BJP the uh, backup that it badly needs. It's trying to expand all over Telangana. And I think KCR and his family have sensed a real threat in the BJP. So, because KCR, as far as I remember, and I mean, we've also written several pieces, he was counted along with Naveen Patnaik and Jagan Mohan Reddy as one of the forces who the BJP could bank upon if there was a crunch in parliament, a number crunch in parliament to pass a bill. I mean, it was a pretty cozy relationship that KCR had with the BJP for quite some time. But, the BJP has obviously sensed Telangana as a fertile territory it could break into. And that, I think, has got KCR's back up. And he's kind of, I mean, traveling all over the country, meeting other regional leaders in order to enhance, I think, his own profile in Telangana. And definitely, there's no question he has national ambitions. However, the problem with the parties that we have is that all of them have a fairly small turf to work upon in their, which is their states, be it
Yeah.
Mamta, be it Kejriwal or KCR. And first and foremost, they have to protect that turf, improve on it, consolidate their strength in order to be taken seriously nationally. For instance, I'm not for a moment suggesting it seriously, but if KCR were to lose the election in Telangana, I mean, who would take him seriously? Pretty much the same plight which Akhilesh Yadav is in today, after having lost the UP
And
election.
that's such an important point because it means that all of these regional satraps have to actually work really hard on holding on to their states, and all of their energies in a way are consumed by that because a defeat in the state is a marginalization or a ticket for recipe for political marginalization. Radhika, PKD Nambiar, but let me argue this the other way. Why would the BJP alienate a kind of neutral set of regional leaders, of which Chandrashekhar Rao, KCR, was at one stage seen, as Radhika said, one of them? Why? Why? I mean, obviously, yes, politics is about power and building sort of a larger base, and the South has always been a bulwark typically against the BJP, except for Karnataka, where too there's been a kind of cobbling together post poll. What do you make of what's happening?
No, I think political aspirations for a good leader, having a good political aspirations is very good. From that point of view, whatever KCR is doing today is going all out and meeting people and giving a feeling that yes, he could be the potential prime ministerial candidate is not a bad idea for him. But what at the cost of what? Or is it And secondly, we always call it in marketing that aspiration should be practical. If it is not a practical aspiration, then there will be a major challenge that you will fall flat. If you fall flat, then it is very difficult for anybody to get up. So it's a game which KCR has taken up, because he knows that there is in his home turf there is a challenge, and it's a major challenge, which is the BJP has taken it up. The Telangana is a very, very serious place, and it's a state which they feel that they can win. And there may be, even as Yashwant said, that there can be even a surprises. One should not be simply saying that he will come back on the third. And as Mr. Sriram said, that it is not that easy for a leader to come the third time. And in the history of the unified Andhra, it has never ever happened. So there are challenges the internally he is trying to facing, and that internal the challenges he wanted to come out with this, creating a kind of an image for him that he is not just limited to a Telangana leader, but a national leader,
but
and he could also be a potentially a ministerial candidate. But please note that a couple of months ago, I written an article on Times of India that who will bell the cat. So the question is that the cat is very clear that he will win even in 2024. But as so many people are saying that I am ready to bell the cat, I am the only one capable. Do you think the ambitious political leader like a Kejriwal will accept anybody else? Or Mamta, she's so much of a powerful leader on her own might, she will be able to accept another person, that too from South, to become a prime ministerial candidate?
That's a very good question, and that is why there is actually effectively no national opposition. The Congress is diminishing and depleting day by day, and all the others are scattered, diffused forces. Before I take this back to Krishank Manne of the TRS, let me play out for you the Prime Minister speaking at the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, where for the second time the Chief Minister made sure that he was not there to receive him at the airport, took several swipes at Mr. K. Chandrashekhar Rao, and this was one of them.
आज के इस युग में अभी भी 21वीं सदी में भी जो लोग अंधविश्वास के गुलाम बने हुए हैं, वो अपने अंधविश्वास में किसी का भी नुकसान कर सकते हैं। ये अंधविश्वासी लोग तेलंगाना के सामर्थ्य के साथ कभी न्याय नहीं कर सकते। साथियों, मुझे याद है जब मैं गुजरात में मुख्यमंत्री था तो वहां भी कुछ शहरों की पहचान बना दी गई थी कि उस शहर में कोई मुख्यमंत्री जा नहीं सकता है, अगर वहां जाएगा तो उसकी कुर्सी चली जाएगी। भाइयों बहनों, मैं डंके की चोट पर वहीं पर जाता था, बार बार जाता था। मैं विज्ञान में विश्वास करता हूं, मैं टेक्नोलॉजी में विश्वास करता हूं।
All right, so Modi calling himself a man of technology and science, calling KCR superstitious. Also, just to correct myself, that clip is not from the ISB. That, of course, is from a political event. He was also speaking at the ISB, so I just wanted to correct myself there. But let me bring in our TRS guest today. Krishank, what do you make of the fact that many things could have been criticized about your party? Family rule, dynasty was one of them. The Prime Minister spoke about that. But to make science versus superstition an issue, that was sort of intriguing. How do you come in on all the comments you've heard so far that the Chief Minister of Telangana is not in a position to take on both the Congress and the BJP, certainly not nationally?
See, one thing, Barkha ji, the point is the nation. I mean, we are addressing the people. They are searching for an alternative for Bharatiya Janata Party and Congress because Narendra Modi ji wants Rahul Gandhi. He wants Congress to be there as his alternative. And that is actually an advantage for them. And that is why there is a search that someone is actually questioning Bharatiya Janata Party, the government of India. And if KCRG is taking the responsibility, then this is nowhere concerned with the prime ministership or the race for prime ministerial candidate at all. That was made earlier, very clear during his earlier press speech. While yesterday, Prime Minister's statements, which you have played just now, this is nothing new which he has commented on. 2014, these were the same statements. 2018 Assembly elections, these were the same statements. 2019 Lok Sabha elections, same statements, and now again the same thing. In fact, people are astonished today because we are there here in the ground of Telangana. What they are astonished is that the Prime Minister of India comes here and stoops to the level of only politics. 8 years, they do not speak anything what they have done because they haven't done anything. They haven't got anything to speak. And at least this remaining 2 years, what is he going to do for Telangana? These are not there. This is not new to attack KCR. Since 21 years, when
How do you respond to the rise of the BJP that the other guests have spoken about, both in the assembly by polls, in the Lok Sabha elections, and in the Hyderabad elections, Greater Hyderabad elections?
Yes. Well, Greater Hyderabad elections was a different thing. I mean, because 26 seats where we changed, we won 21 seats, and in fact, a few other seats also we had to change, which didn't happen. That is a different thing again. But these two bypoles, which they've mentioned, one important point is these two weren't the old guard of the Bharatiya Janata Party. They weren't from the Bharatiya Janata Party. One shifted sides from TRS to Bharatiya Janata Party, and the other also was with TRS, then Congress, and then Bharatiya Janata Party, and they won. Basically, and again, let me remind you, there are other two elections also which we shouldn't ignore. If Bharatiya Janata Party really had that swing towards them to be the alternative, what happened in Nagarjun Sagar elections? Nagarjun Sagar by-elections, they didn't make it through even the deposit also. And there were the major two legislative council seats, which covered half of Telangana. And Bharatiya Janata Party in one seat, they could not even make in the top three. And in the sitting seat, they've lost it. It was a Bharatiya
Do you agree, before I go to the others briefly, that the BJP is going to replace the Congress as your main challenger?
I mean, we are really not thinking about the alternative, and it wouldn't be right if I spill out who's the alternative for the TRS. One thing is for sure, people connect with, just like how Yashwantji said, there is a lot of work done here in Telangana by KCRG, and that is what he's speaking out. Today we are going, I mean, Narendra Modi ji campaigned about Gujarat model. Today we are campaigning Telangana model, which is a successful model. There are no power, there are no water crisis. There is a irrigation project which we've done on own. So government of India has not done to Telangana what they had to do, but we are successfully running a state and the largest contributor. And this is what we are putting forth across.
Let me bring in Radhika on something interesting that happened recently when you had KCR's son, actually go online and talk about how Hyderabad today is a more cosmopolitan center for business than Bengaluru, given the kind of fault lines that were being exposed in fights over the hijab and other religious issues. This is the point, and he's obviously also taken his pitch, as we can see in these pictures, to Davos, as several chief ministers do. Radhika, what's actually going on here? What's the play? Is the play the presidential polls? Is it merely another term in Telangana? Is it something more?
Yeah, okay. Firstly, Bangalore, there's no doubt that whatever incidents have happened in Karnataka, I mean, most of these incidents happened outside Bangalore, but the spillover effect on Bangalore was very, very obvious. Otherwise, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have had Kiran Mazumdar show making at least a half-hearted intervention and so on. It's been a major, major embarrassment to a certain community in Bangalore, to the elite of Bangalore, and obviously KTR kind of jumped in and took advantage of the possibly the kind of cachet that Telangana has to offer, namely the absence or communal disharmony has been at a very low ebb so far. However, this is where the BJP has stepped in. And if you notice the recent speeches of their leaders, they've got a very feisty state president in Bandi Sanjay Kumar. And he is trying to whip up communal passions. And they have, I mean, his strategy or his tactic, whatever you call it, has helped the BJP to a great extent. Of course, the other side, the flip side is that some in the BJP feel that had he not straight away attacked the Rohingyas and said that he's going to, the BJP will launch a surgical strike against the Rohingyas when he was campaigning for the Hyderabad elections, the votes may not have got polarized to the extent they did, and the BJP could have pulled through and not, fallen short of the numbers. So I think this whole business of ease of doing business in a relatively conducive, relatively harmonious social atmosphere is probably one thing that the TRS has on its side
But
so
but the
far.
question, so
Yeah.
yeah, but the question would be what it translates into electorally, and that's obviously everything in politics. Yashwant, let me ask you the same thing: is the immediate test the presidential polls or not really? Because if Jagan Reddy and Naveen Patnaik do step in, the BJP will then, I think, most likely be able to sail through. So, what is KCR's next play according to you?
I think he's rather, again, I would like to come back to the same thing that everybody has a right to dream to become the prime minister. That kind of ambition, there is no politician under the sun who wouldn't have that kind of ambition, and there is nothing wrong. And you very rightly pointed out his speaking in Hindi, which actually people do not realize in this entire Hindi and non Hindi debate that even in a South Indian politician, starting with PV Narasimha Rao, they were fluent in Hindi, and Deve ji used to take Hindi lesson just to ensure that he can actually make his All India presence being felt. We know that part of history.
Yeah.
To give due credit to KCR ji, he speaks perfectly fluent Hindi. So he is trying to hammer down his point that he can speak Hindi. He can be elevated to a pan India leader. He did the same thing even in 2017-18 time, Barkha. He did go to all the regional parties and regional opposition leaders, trying to kind of weave out something which can put everybody together. He had done this exercise earlier as well. But I doubt that for two reasons, many would be joining the bandwagon. Number one, that most of the non BJP, non Congress chief ministers in India are happy being the chief minister, barring Arvind Kejriwal. I am not even counting Mamta Banerjee in that, because I guess that Mamta Banerjee was, जिसे हिंदी में कहते हैं कि वो चने के झाड़ पे चढ़ा दी गई थी, लेकिन उन्होंने समझ भी लिया है बहुत तेजी से. So she went up to that thing that I can become the prime minister. But I doubt that post Goa she still has that kind of
Yeah.
ambition. They are more inclined to save their home turf. That's their primary thing, number one. Number two, a significant number of them are also in a very good symbiotic relationship with the BJP, even as the opposition. Like you have seen Jagan Mohan Reddy, and you have seen the case of Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Babu. And Naveen Babu happens to be the champion of champions in that way, if you are counting in the pro-incumbent verdict. So, arguably speaking, if there is one leader in India who can actually go out and challenge Modi on the pro-incumbency format,
It is
that
Naveen.
is Naveen Babu. But look at the way he is just keeping himself on the back burner. That no, I am not at all interested. So this is why I genuinely believe that not many of these parties will join the bandwagon, which now puts all of us back to the square one. Why
That
exactly KCR is doing this, and
yes.
that is primarily to see through that Telangana remains the TRS way. And as I mentioned, I believe the biggest challenge for them is right now the transition of power from father to son. That must happen, because otherwise the incumbency is going to create trouble. Let's not forget that beyond these theories of pro incumbency and anti incumbency, the people at large at the grassroots level do give you signals. And his daughter's defeat was one of those signals that you cannot be complacent, you cannot take the voters for granted.
Let
And
let, let
this is
me
case. KT is critical in that chain, because if KT is not given the charge at the right point of time, then I guess that TRS will have some really, I mean, let's
let,
say, not so good surprises.
let me ask Sriram if he agrees. Sriram?
Bring in the subtle point that there's a difference between familiarity and expertise as far as really understanding KCR and KTR is concerned. First and foremost, Mr. K. Chandrashekhar Rao, I'll stake my neck on that, will not move away from the post of Chief Minister and make his son CM just like that. Make no mistake about it. He will not. Second thing is, the anti-incumbency against the TRS is far more deep and steep than Krishank, and I understand he's a TRS leader. But when he says somebody like the former finance minister and health minister of TRS, Itala Rajendra, moved to BJP and then went on to win, defeating TRS, he's like saying Hardik Pandya wins IPL is actually originally a Mumbai player. By that logic, Krishank Manne is also a Congress leader. So come on. Everybody in Telugu politics except Kishan Reddy and Venkaya Naidu have had two minimum political parties. Chandrababu Naidu, Y.S. Rajshekar Reddy, Jagan Mohan Reddy, KCR, etc. Everybody has been in more than one party. So leave it. My point is this. KCR is not using domestic politics to make a national impact, as all of you believe. It's a red herring. He is using national politics to influence domestic politics because he knows on his positive delivery and agenda, he is not assured of a third term. He wants to speak the angry language of an opposition leader by making Modi look at his rival. Problem is, assembly elections are ahead of Lok Sabha, and people in Telangana are smart enough to distinguish between the two. As Deshmukh ji said, the Lok Sabha elections came after 4 months. 127 days later, people who had given 88 assembly seats to KCR defeat, and he went to Lok Sabha elections saying
Sriram, you're actually
17
saying
Lok Sabha.
you're actually
He
saying
asked for
there's
Barkha, just
no
let me
national
finish this.
ambition. Yeah, there's no
He has
national
national
ambition.
ambition. It's an additional thing. It is a desert. His primary course meal is to win the chief ministership, and he knows he has a tough battle. So he's trying to make the people of Telangana believe that he's much bigger than a chief minister. It is not a done deal. And don't write off Congress. Both Congress and BJP are today building up. It is a triangular. Don't predict the winner yet. It won't be an easy game for anybody.
Before I go to PKD, I'll allow Krishank a brief interjection there. It's only fair. Go ahead, Krishank Manne.
If really there were no national interests, I wouldn't put it like national ambitions, but rather national interests, we would have taken on Narendra Modi ji's visit, or even Nadda ji's visit, or Amit Shah ji's visit, or the list of central ministers who keep coming here. We would have directly confronted them and limit only to the Telangana fight. The questions which we are putting, are these agenda true or not? Isn't there, the point is, isn't there a vacuum or not? Is Rahul Gandhi ji, as the claimant of being the opposition, are they, or is the Congress party taking up the baton to question the government of India? That is what we want to convince the people, because these issues are there. The government of India has miserably failed. I mean, if you are seeing the report card of Telangana, definitely, please compare other states or even of the government of India's administration and Telangana's. We have done a project. We do not have water crisis. We do not have electricity crisis. So please do compare. Politically, Bharatiya Janata Party will be in a question mark. Apart from their PST statements or communal statements, like he has mentioned of BJP leader has said that, he will demolish mosques or ban Urdu. Such kind of statements, would it give votes, is again an arguable thing. But in the larger debate, people will also think that what has Bharatiya Janata Party or the government of India done to Telangana? That we will continue to question. And
Okay, hang on. Hang on. This was meant to be an interjection. Hang on. Let me bring in PKD Nambiar. Go ahead, Ms. Nambiar.
thing is very clear. I think it's very interesting that the KCR's national ambition, or he's going all around. But what is the bottom line? I think whatever Mr. Sriram said is the real reality. He knows that he is going through a real anti-incumbency on the ground. Even Bandi Sanjay Kumar, he had a Padiyatra, which was well received all across, both in the rural and the urban areas. And a large number of BJP leaders, whether as Krishank was talking about, everybody was queuing up there, and they have taken it up Telangana as a serious battleground. So KCR knows that, yes, it is difficult for him to win on his own in the same might as what he did it in the last two times.
Okay.
The first time, of course, it's after the Telangana movement, and the second time it was, of course, he got another continuation. But this time around, that is not going to be easy. Then what is the next way to make a news out of it, that he wanted to showcase that he is the one who can be the real opposition leader national level to take on to Mr. Modi. But as Mr. Sriram said, the people of Telangana do understand. It's a progressive state. They understand Prime Minister kya hota hai, CM kya hota hai. I think the challenge is that forget about the Prime Ministership, whether will he become a CM? That is the big question mark, rather than trying to be the Prime Minister.
Before I take brief concluding remarks from Radhika, Yashwant, and Sriram, if he wants to come in, one brief question to you, Krishank. Do you agree that it will be KCR who will remain the face of the contender for the big post in the state, or will his son also, is there a sense of a generational shift?
Well, that the entire party will decide. That there is an organization led by our KCRG, and there is an entire organization that will. But as of now, yes, our leadership continues to, our entire organization continues to work under KCRG, and we want him to lead this entire national interests also. Whosoever, he is ready to even work with Mamata Banerjee ji if she has interest for the Prime Ministership, or even Arvind Kejriwal ji. When every one of us have mentioned that Arvind Kejriwal has interest to be the Prime Minister and KCRG has extended the hand to work together, we are ready. All we want is a new agenda to think beyond Bharatiya Janata.
Okay, PKD, very briefly, please.
Yeah, very briefly. Very briefly.
Yes.
See, one thing yesterday, what Prime Minister said is very interesting. Just imagine, even like the spokesperson is able to not go beyond KCR and KTR. So it's all about one particular family. How long the people of this country will be working only for one family, like an employees? I think the time has come to go beyond the family. And I personally like KTR. He's extremely good, very polished. He speaks excellent. He's full of facts. And I'm a great fan of him personally. But why after KCR? Why KTR? And after that, his sister? I think the people who work for
so
not as an employee. I think political people should not become like an employees of one family at least an enterprise.
Radhika, the BJP centrally often takes swipes at the dynasty, but they have enough dynasts within their own party. That's a whole different debate. There are dynasts who had to work very hard on the ground. For example, Jagan Reddy, who had to literally take a padyatra through the state before there was a kind of renewed acceptability for him. So I don't want to, in concluding comments, get into the dynasty debate. Your last thoughts, Radhika?
Yeah, well, the fact that the people of Telangana voted KCR twice, in first on the strength of the creation of Telangana, and second time it was populism forward. The point is that the raft of promises that he unveiled, has he delivered upon those? I think that will be the crucial question in the next elections. And there are reports that he hasn't delivered too efficiently or too effectively on those promises. So the point is that I don't see his national ambitions being a big factor in an assembly election. So the question is that what plank is he going to fight the election on? I think that would be the crucial factor to watch out.
You've spoken a lot about not writing off the Congress.
I am amazed at how easily experts on television fall in love with anybody who speaks good English. Let me tell you, the biggest strength of TRS is still Mr. K. Chandrashekhar Rao. If anything, you say KTR is the CM candidate, both Congress and BJP will start celebrating, And I accept that KTR is an amazing leader for the future. For now, the biggest strength of TRS is Mr. KCR. If they go into the election saying he won't be the CM, I think BJP and Congress will have a better shot. But I'll tell you this bottom line, till the day elections are held in this particular state assembly election coming next year, whenever all the three parties are in the race, you write either of any one of them, TRS, Congress, BJP, all three are in a position to possibly make it to the finish line. It's a close battle. Don't believe anything else anybody tells you.
All right, let me give the last word to Yashwant, whose polling is obviously painting a different picture. Yashwant, last word to you.
Barkha, KCR spoke in Hindi, and it reminded me of a wonderful proverb in Hindi, कि तोप मांगेंगे तो बंदूक तो मिल ही जाएगी. Basically, he is campaigning for something much bigger, hoping कि तोप मांगते मांगते कम से कम बंदूक तो मुझे मिल ही जाएगी. But having said that, on the larger, because we'll come back again and again in the coming months, Barkha, on the issue of the alternative and the options. And I have always maintained that no matter what happens, even if Mamata Banerjee wins all 42 Lok Sabha seats, even if Arvind Kejriwal happens to win 7 plus 13, now that the territory of Punjab is included, it will be 20 seats. Even if KCR manages to sweep Telangana, he would end up with 17 seats. All that's just done and dusted, still that tally would be less than the worst possible tally of Congress of 40 or 50 seats, whatever it is. So what I'm simply trying to say, any such opposition alliance without keeping Congress as the main ingredient in that equation is not going to bear fruit results in a very logical way. Beyond that, I guess that everyone, including Barkha Dutt, Yashwant, Deshmukh, and everybody on the show, has the full rights to dream and become the Prime Minister of this country.
I have no such dreams. I don't know what the rest of you. Thank you very much.
I said we have the right to dream, Barkha.
Yes,
and we may or may not have the dream.
We do. PKD, Krishank, Yashwant, Radhika, Sriram. Pleasure. Lovely conversation. We'll have you all back soon as the story unfolds. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalists.